I am Nesmuvasitan. In this one, there'll be a few questions, but there'll also be a few answers as well. Well, you're listening to how I break down this lore, so I'd best get on with it. Previously on Leviathan, Garnet was subjected to the rifts that the others who lived in that orphanage were exposed to, essentially becoming part of the experiment. He found himself in different realities, one where he was in the same position as Lulu of the Streetlight office, a Zwei Association affiliate, as he was raging at those that took Lapis from him, who was in Mars's position. Then he found himself as director of She Association South Section 2, in the same role as Yujin, as that section was barely holding together with the constant assassination contracts. Then he found himself in a reality which was closer to ours, mundane and ordinary, until a plane crashed in front of him. Then he was a ring maestro, and gained some insight on how psychologically obsessed they were with arts. Well, mental illness appears to be an occupational hazard in that profession, isn't it? Then he was in a reality where he was the Black Silence, who had killed the pianist but was too late to save Lapis, who was in the role that Angelica had. Then he found himself back in the lab and had a direction to focus his rage on, Maestro Jumsun of the Ring, with different parts of him synced with different ultimates. And now the continuation. The lab coat-wearing scientist known as Azia walks in on this and said that Yongji was right. They were familiar with Nanxiu. That scientist was also one of those overseeing the experiment with Jum Sun, operating the machines, at least according to the video that was smuggled out. The video that led to this point. Nanxiu snuck that man in, likely when he and Rikoko infiltrated that place. Maestro Jumsun considered the result a first, even for Azia. She didn't even care about the incapacitated ring thugs or Rikoko's dead body. Yes, she was killed by Nanxiu. And yes, I seem to be getting the genders a bit confused here. Apparently, Maestro Jumsun is female. Anyway, all that mattered was Garnet in his unique new state. Azia described the glass window technology as something that superimposed worlds upon each other, albeit in a blurry state. Even though the image is clearer with the mirror technology, not as many worlds can be superimposed. He examined Garnet's body, scanning the different forms of each part, all with emotionless eyes, while seeing the eyes of the different Garnets layered over each other. He was amazed by Garnet's ability to bear it all. Maestro Jumsun wasn't as surprised as she was the one who discovered him. The reason why Azia was surprised was that it wasn't just his own emotions that he was dealing with, but he was also dealing with the emotions from the alternates that he was exposed to. They were fighting for control, yet he was able to handle it without losing himself. Garnet was listening to all of this, and he had to conclude that he wasn't wrong about that. His mind was being fractured into pieces. All the pain, the scars, the suffering, the rage, the crying, the resentment, the self-hatred, the hatred towards the world, all different, yet equal. Azir marveled at his ability to maintain his focus, to keep his mind as his own, despite so many variations appearing that there's a risk of no trace of the core personality remaining, even if there are foggy spots here and there. But they could work on that, and once they did, well, he believed that the glass window technology could become a singularity to surpass the mirror that his friend Yi Sang created, due to curving the refraction rate slightly, and what his creation achieved. Yi Sang. So that's where this technology came from. The mirror technology, as in Yi Sang. That will be in Limbus Company. Yi Sang, one of the, well, what I've come to consider to be the damned dozen. Well, Dirty Dozen is taken. I'm sure that he'll turn up eventually. Anyway, Garnet remembered them saying refraction rates from Lapis's footage, where Maestro Jumsun ordered her researchers to raise it far past the normal amount, despite the concerns raised, which shattered the children's minds like a pane of glass in the path of ultrasonics. The reason for this was apparently a higher refraction rate yields more of your heart to the glass windows, but at the cost of more panes of glass stacking, metaphorically speaking, which was made possible by mastering the delicate act of perishing your heart without killing it, which regressed the children into cocooned forms. They faced possibly thousands of worlds, each with alternates of themselves, and they were broken by that. Maestro Jumsun asked the little gem how he was able to achieve what he did without prior experience. Garnet remained silent. Azir then begged the young friend. Oh, such an obvious confidence trick. As the window technology has the potential to be greater than the mirror technology, to rise above their competitors, wanting him to put aside his grievances, such as almost losing himself. So this Ring Maestro has the ambition to become the government of a wing. Or more, become a wing, as in the government of an entire district. Yes, that would be quite worrying, wouldn't it? Unless a puppet was used. Well, regardless, Jumsun commended Azir's passion, asking if it was really worth risking N-Corp's pursuit to bring him there. So that's why Gubo was at the auction and wanted to access the corridor. It's because of Azia. As for Garnet, he saw that his friends were being experimented on painfully. And he was hearing this being discussed in a casual way. This disgusted him to the core, so he focused his will on giving them the insight that they so craved. He said that it's simple, that he has. Then Jumsun asked if the red gaze handed something over to him, approaching the glass wall to hear him better, to observe any techniques that Virgilius might have granted him. Maestro Jumsun, you overestimate a rookie fixer, as all Virgilius did was loan him his gladius and coat. And right now he was using neither. Although he did have a reason why he was holding himself together. He told the ring maestro that he was going back with them. As what held him together, it was faith. Faith that he'll save Lapis and his friends and return to the office with Virgilius. This made him feel secure that they'll break free and come back to them. Lapis might be suffering, but he won't let go of hope. Even though speaking was straining to him, he wielded a massive lance handcrafted by Allah's workshop, utilizing what he had from the world where he was the Black Silence. He was able to know how to use that weapon, and just as he was about to throw it, he said, "After I kill you." This created an explosive shockwave that thrashed the eardrums, the arm outstretched in Jumsun's direction. The lance crashed into the middle of the glass wall, making Jumsun's eyebrows flinch, and the wall cracking and falling to pieces. Which surprised her, as most weapons can't even make a scratch on it. Well, weapons worthy of a color fixer are usually expensive and worth every arm. They're above grade 1, so they need gear that reflects that. Maestro Jumsun had no idea how clear and unshakable Garnet's faith was. The reason for that was because a Maestro of the Ring lives a life where greed was everything, and the material world was all that was a concern to them. This was the kind of person who would kill their family slowly over the course of months, if it meant being paid a fortune to do so. But Garnet was aflame with faith. He would not stop there. He then made a flaming bat appear from the world where he was in Lulu's position. He felt the burning in his hands, but it wasn't physical burning. It was the burning in his heart, where he lost Lapis, the layers of sorrow piling up. Garnet demanded that she speak, as he came closer to Maestro Jumsun. She was easily able to dodge the blunt force mixed with incendiary damage. He kept swinging, but Garnet wouldn't allow any room to breathe. No quarter will be given. He then planted his left leg, and then lifted his right leg and swung at Maestro Jumsun with it. Utilizing the flexibility-enhancing material of the world where he was a Maestro of the Ring. Yeah, it might look a feat in style over substance, but he forgets. There are tailors that make fabric that has the properties of what they eat. Well, using the Maestro's own advantage against them, allowed Garnet to deliver a more powerful kick to his opponent. Garnet demanded that she tell him how to bring the children back to normal. Jumsun was caught by surprise by the roundhouse kick that Garnet had delivered. Unable to get out of the way, she stumbled. She then spoke of cocoons, the squirming children inside the machines. This made Garnet feel unpleasant and appalled. But he put aside these emotions for now, just as Jumsun was saying, "What are—" He closed his eyes at that point, reaching for the calm stillness in the dark, finding the red line, grasping it, utilizing the world where he was a director within Shi Association. He drew out the red sword that was standard issue with Shi Association fixers, which he used to slash at Maestro Jumsun as if he was a strong gale, leaving a crimson trace, intending to slice her head off. But she was able to regain her balance and get out of the way. But the next slash did not miss. He shifted the sword's direction and aimed for the left shoulder, utilizing the knowledge of an experienced assassin to slice her left arm off. He threatened to remove the other arm if it would make her talk, which surprised Garnet, as threats or intimidation were more fitting tactics for Rikoko and Denver, those experienced enough to back those tactics up with action. Another part of the struggle to stay alive, where he felt cold and uncaring. Maestro Jumsun was able to push past the pain and had an arrogant composure, telling Garnet that the cocoons were new to her too. She's still at a disadvantage. The battle was still in Garnet's favor. She was losing blood, but she wasn't done yet, telling Garnet that although she didn't want to disappoint his desperation, it's hard not to divert her attention to those curiosities. Garnet didn't know what she meant. Azia then began talking, pretending that the fight wasn't happening, not even worried that he might have one of Garnet's weapons, delivering a painful death to him at any point. According to Azia, crystalloid or ovoid transformations occurred on rare occasions after a failed test, where in the past, they just shattered to pieces. This started after the White Knights. So after the Knights, where the light was released. When the light was released for a full 7 days, or certainly closer to it than it used to be, the first time round. Yes, released properly near the end of Library of Ruina. It was also occurring naturally, outside of the lab, unrelated to their experiments. It's that phenomenon, isn't it? Garnet clearly didn't know what he meant. Well, if he did, the hope he had would shatter and break like the window that he just threw that javelin at. Garnet couldn't understand that it wasn't made on purpose, that it was a byproduct of their research. Azia didn't understand why they'd do research where precious raw stones were encased in fleshy sacks, where no cases went back to their pre-cocoon states, where forcibly opening the chrysalides ended badly. Once cocooned, they mutate. Yeah, it's definitely that which is happening to them. Garnet couldn't believe how apathetic they were about this, that there was no going back for them. As they are believing that it was what it was, Maestro Jumsun even considering that what they metamorphose into might yield more valuable gems. Garnet was unable to believe what he was hearing. He shouted at them to do whatever it takes to turn them back. He then embraced silence, fully manifesting the alternate of the black silence. He brought out a revolver and shot at Jumsun 6 times. 2 of those shots hit her upper body, but they bounced off her clothing. Clearly, this clothing is also resistant to kinetic projectile weapons. He threw his gun aside, all ammo being used, which, thanks to the head's FX law, is expensive and hard to come by at the best of times. The lance was stuck in the floor, so he can't use that either. He then brought out a huge hammer. He swung it at her as if he was a pink hedgehog in full rage mode. But she stepped back far enough to avoid it. He then brought out a longsword that was taller than him, slicing a long arc. He then wielded a Ragnar dagger in his right hand and an Alas gauntlet in his left. She evaded all of these. He mastered the weapons, yet his body couldn't replicate what he knew. He flung his dagger, aiming for her heart, but she brought out her weapon and blocked it. She then was met by a heavy mace wielded by Garnet, which managed to drive her into the corner where she couldn't evade. Then he brought out the shotgun, unloading his boomstick's entire ammo on her. Then he brought out his greatsword, striking downward from head to toe. Silver casings, empty shells, gunpowder. She still wasn't dead. It all came down to Durandal. All to finish Jumsun off. Then we see the flaw of him fully utilizing the black silence. The grief and despair. He didn't see the point in this. Killing Jumsun would not bring Lapis back. Yes, he was taken over by that alternate where Lapis was reduced to piano notes and scattered in the wind. One who will no longer appear, no matter how long he waited. Gone in every sense. Life from now on shrouded in darkness. Sorrow, all that's there. It's all the same. Even if he kills the target of his wrath, nothing will change. No matter what he does with his abilities, as Lapis is trapped in the past, with no access to the present. Only death awaits in the end. He was unable to finish the ring Maestro off, as he had too much on his mind right now. He didn't even notice that he reverted to who he was, a grade 9 rookie fixer. As he pulled out weapons, the burden on him grew, and eventually the reflections of his alternate selves fell off. Jumsun asked if he was done. exploiting this hesitation, raising her weapon with the arm that wasn't severed. He was powerless to fight back now, no longer having the strength, physical or psychological, to fight back. She then cut his legs off. Azia told him that all he needs is his brain, promising him that he will be shown even more worlds through reflections. Jumsoon hoping that he wouldn't mind. Then the pods opened one by one. They all looked in that direction to find out what they were. What the shrieks were being made from. What they found was distortions. The bestial kind that lacked the intelligence of their former selves. One was something straight out of a Tim Burton movie, and the other looks like a poor attempt by Poison Ivy to make Kakuta from the Final Fantasy series. They could only scream, crawl, and other things. They didn't seem human. Not anymore. The same endless despair that Garnet, the Black Silence, felt. An overwhelming emotion caused the rookie fixer to retreat inwards. The constant pressure, the weight of all the alternates making him collapse within himself. All pressing down on him at once. All giving him enough so that his mind is broken. And a desire to regress. Back into the void where he would feel nothing. He was reminded of that rainy day, feelings surfacing like dead fish floating to the surface. I see you've been to a district that borders the larger body of water in the south. The unwillingness to do so long diminished. Then there was the creepy and foul music of the city passing through his eardrums and dropping off into his heart with such force that it could erode. The pianist incident. The emotions were suffocating him. He wanted to hide in his own cocoon like his friends did, even though he saw what they turned into. It was too late to save them. Then he heard shouts. One of them was Azia shouting, "No, Garnet! This can't be! How can this be?" And Jumsoon asked, why must he of all gems go inside a cocoon? Asking Azia what the cocoon is and why does it have to ruin their experiments? All while Garnet abandoned himself. Leaving his body for hungered sins to feast on. The outside world, meaningless. Inside, he faced the fires of guilt, extending an arm to shake his hand, as he was encased in a red cocoon of his own. We've learned a number of things in this lore breakdown video. Let's see. There's Gubo of Encore. He's after Azia, likely to secure his potential singularity, so they can acquire it without a risk of a patent war. Which was why he was determined to get the highest bid in the auction. Then we have the mention of Yi Sang, who is likely not a Hana Association affiliate, even though each of the damned dozen appears to correspond with the number in the language that each association uses. 1 in Korean, 2 in German, 3 in Spanish, 4 in Japanese, and so on. He was also the creator of what was likely the technology that Limbus Company will use when it gets formed. a technology that allows for the utilization of the abilities of alternates. As for what happened to Garnet, all this talk of sins and fires of guilt, along with him becoming a distortion, could this be Dante's origin story? That he is what Garnet is becoming? It's also revealed that this is happening outside as well. That distortions are not so spontaneous now, but are developing like what has been replicated artificially in that lab, as a byproduct of their experiments. It's also revealed that the White Knights had this effect on the city, as in the lights being shone for a whole week. Hard to know who's more responsible for this, Angela or Carmen. Angela for wanting to finish what her father, Ian, started, or her mother, Carmen, for wanting to make as many distorts as possible. We know that this will lead to Limbus Company, but how will Yi Sun, a former researcher of an unknown wing, a wing that likely no longer exists, appear in this, or any of the others that are part of the damned dozen? Well, it looks like their pet distortion will be making his appearance quite soon. As what he's capable of, that is assuming Garnet is becoming Dante, then we'll find out what he's capable of soon enough. It would also explain why Virgilius is with him. Speaking of which, he still hasn't caught up with Garnet yet, although he'll likely finish what Garnet was unable to do, with the use of his emotion-fueled psychoments. It's unclear who will be killed first, Jumsun, the one-armed Maestro of the Ring, or the turncoat Nanciul. Well, let's hope that this at least is answered in the next book. It's starting to come together, isn't it? The closer we are to the present of Limbus Company, the more makes sense. Little by little. Until next time. Hail the rabbit!